Governor J.B. Pritzker visiting Harvard University yesterday, taking part in a conversation about politics where he was peppered with questions by Illinois natives that have moved from Illinois to a different school, primarily Harvard University. So wild to see that, of course, with those Chicago area students. The governor, he started off with this a little bit more than an hour-long presentation where there were a couple of moderators asking questions, and he talked about how he's a Democrat, and he talked a bit about the capitalist system and says that there needs to be controls on capitalism. He was called a progressive, but he says that he's more of a pragmatic progressive. So the governor getting a lot of different questions about politics during this conversation at Harvard University yesterday evening. And I wanted to pick out a few things. We've already throughout the morning heard some of what the governor had to say about gun control. He talked about it at a couple of different turns last night at the conversation, upholding his gun and magazine ban, which currently faces challenges in the state and federal courts. But he also talked about energy, and we shared some of those comments as well. But the governor was asked about a variety of other things, including politics. And in particular, after he talked about his history in politics, he was asked to focus on the 2024 presidential election.
We're going to shift to 2024 politics. Feel free to break news if you'd like.
Joe Biden is running for re-election, everybody.
Did you get that?
So the governor says Joe Biden is running for re-election. We'll see how that plays out. The president said yesterday, actually I think on Sunday, he said that he intends to run, but they haven't made that announcement yet, so we'll see what happens there. A lot of speculation about whether or not Pritzker is going to be the Democratic candidate, or maybe Gavin Newsom is going to be the Democratic candidate. Either way, a lot of speculation as to who's going to be the 2024 Democratic nominee for the 2024 presidential election. But the governor was also asked about campaign financing. A couple of questions here. And I think what's telling is the governor seems to want to have a uniparty, though he doesn't say a uniparty. What's a uniparty? Well, think about it. Here in the state of Illinois, we kind of have that. We have the chief executive, the governor's a Democrat. The attorney general is a Democrat who got $1 million from Governor J.B. Pritzker. The treasurer is a Democrat. The comptroller is a Democrat. The secretary of state's a Democrat. The legislature is dominated by Democrats in the House, dominated by Democrats in the Senate, and even the third branch of government. You've got the executive, the legislature, now the judicial branch. You've got a Democrat-dominated judicial branch where the governor has given $1 million to two of then Supreme Court justice candidates. So you got this idea of a uniparty, and how that could be bad. Well, I would imagine you can find some Republicans, and have already said this, that having no checks and balances in government means that you can get run over by government edicts, like 2+ years of pandemic restrictions without the General Assembly actually having a say or a willingness to have a say in how the pandemic is managed. So that's maybe some of the problems with what is considered a uniparty. But the governor was asked a pretty pointed question in why during the 2022 election cycle, especially in the party primaries, why did Democrats fund the Republican primary as heavy as they did? Here's the governor sounding off on that particular question.
Hi, my name is Alma. I'm with the college. I'm just wondering why during your campaign against Darren Bailey, $24 million was given to support his advertisements. I just don't know if this is a common occurrence of the Democratic Party giving money to the GOP, but if you could just talk on that.
So I think what you're referring to is that the Democratic Governors Association ran ads during the Republican primary. Let me back up and just give you a picture of what was going on in Illinois at the time. There was a wealthy hedge fund founder who wrote a $50 million check to a candidate in the Republican primary. No one else had money like that in the Republican primary, and said that he was doing it because he wanted to beat me and was willing to write a $200 to $300 million check in a general election to defeat me. Why? Because I wanted a graduated income tax. He didn't want a graduated income tax. We weren't able to get that done because of his opposition, and he wanted to punish me and make sure I never had a chance to make the tax system fairer again in office. And so the Democratic Governors Association, which I've been a supporter of for years, came in and supported a different candidate in that Republican primary. But it really wasn't that. It was that they ran ads saying the things that Republican primary voters believed. The ads, here's what the ads said. Darren Bailey wants to end abortion rights. That was true. Darren Bailey wants to preserve gun rights and believes in your Second Amendment rights with no limitations. And that was true. And that Darren Bailey is too conservative for Illinois. And Republican voters aren't stupid. They voted for the person that believed in the things that they wanted to come out of the Republican primary. That's how Darren Bailey won. So, I mean, it was an unusual situation, but I want to remind everybody that when I ran 4 years earlier, the Republicans did virtually the same thing to me in the Democratic primary. They attacked me. The Republican governor did not want me to make it through the Democratic primary in 2018 because he knew I was the strongest candidate to beat him in the general election. So, yeah, politics is tough.
So Governor J.B. Pritzker yesterday at the Harvard Kennedy School Institute of Politics, headlining that event, taking questions from Chicago area residents who moved out of state to go to college. One of the questions he's asked is about population decline, where he continues to deny that Illinois is losing population despite acknowledging, quote, apparently everyone here at Harvard is from Illinois, the governor says. But as far as the graduated income tax he talked about briefly there, he did discuss that in further detail, really seeming to still support the idea, but acknowledging that they couldn't get to that 60% threshold. So the governor might still in the future push for the idea of amending the Constitution for the state of Illinois for a graduated income tax. So we'll hear more from the governor just a few moments, primarily about politics. Again, how he seems to be favoring a uniparty, and he answers a question about money in politics, why he as a billionaire, $3.6 billion according to Forbes, is giving millions and millions of dollars, not just in Illinois, but to politics across the country. He answers that question, but he also answers a question from a Chicago area resident who says Illinois continues to lose population. What are you going to do about it? So stay tuned. We'll get to those points next. Hearing Governor J.B. Pritzker react to students' questions at Harvard University yesterday, where he was the featured speaker at a conversation about politics. We shared conversations he had with some students earlier concerning gun control, concerning nuclear energy and clean energy. We just heard him talk a bit about campaign finance. Why did the Democratic Governors Association fund ads that seem to be in support of Darren Bailey during the GOP primary last year here in Illinois? He laid that out, but he was also asked again about campaign contributions. In particular, he's got billions of dollars, $3.6 billion. He has put in substantial amounts of money, not just in his campaign, but other campaigns. So another individual from Illinois stood up and asked a question of the governor about campaign finance and where he stands in all of this, especially being a billionaire, spending millions of dollars in politics.
Hi, Governor. My name is Andy. I'm a senior at the college from Naperville. I actually want to touch on the topics of money and spending in campaigns. As we all know, Ken Griffin spent $56 million against the fair tax. You put in $54 million of your own money. On your own campaigns, you spent over $100 million bankrolling your campaigns. Ken Griffin has now said he'll basically give a blank check to Ron DeSantis. I'm wondering if you're worried about the rise of money, just big money in politics in Illinois and across the U.S., especially as someone who arguably has benefited a lot from that money yourself.
Yes, and the answer is we need campaign finance reform, both in Illinois and nationally. And to be honest with you, Paul Simon, who was a big believer in campaign finance reform and our former senator, was somebody who famously said about political action committees, when someone said, well, why are you accepting PAC money when you're opposed to political action committees? And he said, because we can't unilaterally disarm in the process of, we can't let the other side essentially have the entire field while we're trying to do the right thing and get campaign finance reform passed. When I was running for office, the incumbent governor was somebody who also had bankrolled, as you use that term, his own campaign. He funded his own campaign. He got $20 million from Ken Griffin also, but also funded his own campaign with, I think, $50 million. And ran against a Democrat who didn't have that kind of backing, and he outspent him 2-1. And he turned out to be, I think, one of the worst governors our state's ever had. And so when 2018 rolled around, it was important to be able to compete. And he was running for re-election. And so I felt like I'm not going to unilaterally disarm. Democrats shouldn't unilaterally disarm. And, and I guess I could have, there are choices to make. I've supported candidates, with my resources. But I also felt like I could beat this guy. And I felt like there were changes that needed to be made, and particularly in the fiscal issues facing the state, that I could help bring about. I spent my own resources on it. Do I think that self-funding campaigns are the answer to politics? No, absolutely not. And I believe that we ought to change it. I do not know in the current environment how we do that, because the Supreme Court of the United States essentially has said that it's free speech to spend as much money as you want. I would like us to change the way we fund campaigns, and I don't want to unilaterally disarm while we're doing it.
So again, that's Governor J.B. Pritzker at Harvard University yesterday taking questions from students from Harvard. And he noted that apparently everyone from Illinois went to Harvard University because all the students were Chicago area or from Illinois. And that joke, I think, is kind of telling. He made saying, quote, apparently everyone here at Harvard is from Illinois, just before getting a question from an Illinois native about Illinois' population decline. And the governor continues to deny that that is a problem or that it's even happening. Here is the question and the response from Governor J.B. Pritzker yesterday at Harvard University.
Hi, Governor. My name is Abhi, and I'm a sophomore at the college from Bloomingdale in DuPage County. My father moved to the state 18 years ago and set up a small business. Illinois is really the only home I know, although I was born in California. A lot of people complain, as you know. But when they're really fed up, they vote with their feet, right? And by that metric, last year, 140,000 Illinoisans made the hard decision to get up and leave the state. Among the reasons cited, as you know, are high property taxes, high sales taxes, and as you mentioned, unpopular proposed income taxes, increases in income taxes. So when people like my father and my family are faced with the decision of downsizing and selling the family business or leaving the state, what do you have to say to them?
Well, let me contend that the data that you just cited is wrong. Let me talk about population in the state of Illinois. So for year after year after year, the American Community Survey, which is literally like a poll, a survey that gets done in between the 10-year census that gets done, showed that Illinois was losing population, 100,000 a year, every year, year in, year out, or more. And I believed it. And I campaigned in part on making sure that we are addressing the outmigration from the state of Illinois. One of the important things to do, which I have done, is make college more affordable, because it turns out that the plurality of people who are leaving are people who couldn't afford to go to college in the state of Illinois. Let's make it affordable. Let's keep our smartest, best, kids, or smartest kids in the state in Illinois. So I've effectuated that. Meanwhile, we did a census in 2020. Turns out all the American Community Survey data, wrong. We gained population in the
let me just stop. We did not gain population in the 2020 census. We lost population, hence why we lost a seat in Congress. So the governor continues to deny population decline in the state of Illinois. Again, I just had to interject there, doing a fact check here. We lost population in the state of Illinois because we lost a seat in Congress, or conversely, we lost a seat in Congress because we lost population in the state of Illinois. All right, back to the governor.
State of Illinois in the census of 2020. So now what am I supposed to say? Every year the Republicans, the right wing, cites the American Community Survey data. You just cited some from last year that says that we're losing population, when the reality is that we didn't over the last 10 years, when the American Community Survey said we did. So I would just say our economy has grown from $800 million to over $1 trillion in the last couple of years. We have jobs available. In fact, we have about 85,000 more jobs available in the state of Illinois right now than we have people who can fill those jobs. And you might say it's because people left. I would tell you because we have a lot of people who retired early, and that's what the data shows in Illinois, because we don't have any retirement tax, one of 3 or 4 states that doesn't have a retirement tax. And we had people retire early instead of at 65 or 67 or 70. They retired at 63 or 62. Why? Because of COVID. And they said, you know what, I'm done. I can retire now. I don't need to keep working with COVID around. And we don't have enough young people that are coming up in the next generation to take those jobs. So that's a challenge. We have a labor shortage all across the United States. Hopefully all of you know that. And that, in Illinois anyway, our economy continues to grow. We've created a lot of jobs, and I'm going to continue to work to do that.
Again, the governor seeming to deny population decline. People on social media saying he's a population denier. He seems to just downplay the fact that Illinois lost a seat in Congress because of continued population decline. Even the most recent numbers indicate Illinois continues to lose population, with the majority of Illinois counties losing population. U.S. Census data putting that out. You also have other non-U.S. Census data indicating Illinois losing population. The IRS migration data showing that Illinois is not just losing population, it's losing its highest earners to other states. You also have private data from van lines, from U-Haul, putting out annual estimates of people moving out of states, and Illinois regularly leads as the largest net out migration from Illinois. So the governor continues to deny population decline, even though every indicator indicates that indeed we are losing population, except for one thing he keeps pointing to, and that is the census saying that they estimated they overcounted Illinois by 2%. Well, that has not changed the official number of Illinois' population. We're still down from 10 years before. That's why we lost a seat in Congress. All right, so that's the governor talking about a variety of different things yesterday at Harvard University, ranging from paying for politics to get a uniparty, to denying population decline, to upholding a gun ban that's being challenged in the federal courts. So all of this, of course, in front of an audience asking somewhat questions directed at the governor's progressive politics, which he says he's not progressive, he's a pragmatic progressive. So take it for what